Hi, my name's John McAllister, and I am here with the 2000 King of Bridge, a 7-time NABC winner, including the 2021 Soloway Knockout and the 2005 Blue Ribbon Pairs with his wife, and a 2-time bronze medal winner in Open World Championships, one of the internet's favorite bridge teachers, and also a defenseman on the Spartans club hockey team. Gavin Wolpert, the first ever guest on the Setting Trick. It's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me back. Excited to get a second shot. And now that you've got the full production team and this is a whole ordeal, it's pretty cool.
Well, I was Googling you earlier today, and the original conversation came up on YouTube, and I was a little afraid to watch it. I was afraid at the horrors that I might have committed as a first-time podcaster.
So you didn't look at it, or you did?
I turned it immediately off, and then I couldn't find it again. And it's weirdly, it's not linked from our website. I found some random YouTube page.
Maybe it was bad enough that whoever was in charge of the website was like, let's leave that one off. We'll start from episode 2.
But you're doing a lot of video stuff yourself now.
Yeah, basically, once the pandemic started, I just jumped in pretty hard into the online teaching, and I kind of had experience from back when we started Bridge Winners. One of the types of content that I was pumping out to get people to come visit the site were videos but it was like before the days of this streaming software. Like I was using pretty high-end video editing software called Camtasia. It's not that high-end. I'm like overselling it a little, but basically it was like I was piecing together a bridge-based table and my video and audio and doing it at the time. At the time, it was an insane amount of effort because the software wasn't built out. But then when the pandemic came and it was clear that lots and lots of bridge players were going to suddenly be forced to not be able to do anything, I kind of jumped into the lesson teaching and streaming thing and discovered that software had come a long way in that decade. And it's amazing how much easier it is to produce content now than it was back then.
And my desire to interview you again kind of started from a conversation we had around that time, because you told me that you were enjoying teaching so much. Like you didn't expect yourself to love it. And I think the one thing, which also stuck out was your students had bought you like a membership to be a member of the American Bridge Teachers Association, which I thought was a really, sweet gesture.
Yeah, it was cool for them to do that. Yeah, so I taught, when I moved to Florida, I started teaching and tried to kind of break into the country club. I grew up with my mom as a bridge teacher, so that's always been a part of who I am. I would always go to her classes, and she would let me skip school and show up at her classes. And so I was around bridge teaching a lot. But then when I moved to Florida, I kind of tried to give it a go of teaching at country clubs. And I was doing well. I was breaking in, but the problem was at country clubs is I would go and I would teach a lesson on a Thursday morning on Stamen. And then I would come back a week later and say, like, do you guys remember? Let's review what we learned last time. Yeah. And I was looking at a sea of faces that nobody was playing bridge between when. Well, it wasn't about the people. It was that they were just showing up for their Thursday classes and not going and reinforcing it at all during the week. And I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy just basically being just showing up and talking about and not having people learn. But then when the pandemic, when people were, all they could do was sit at home and watch my lessons and then go and practice on BBO, it was people were actually rewarding me by showing me that they were learning what I was teaching them, and I actually felt useful. So I like, it gave me an energy about teaching that I had kind of lost. I kind of gave it up. I didn't even want to do it anymore at the country clubs. I stopped on my own accord. I just kind of told the clubs I didn't want to do it anymore and went more in a route of professional poker and also more one-on-one pro playing at the club, and it's much easier to teach somebody one-on-one and see the reward of teaching them.
Right.
So you
send out a weekly email which you run through like a play problem, and then you give the reader the opportunity to play the hand. And I recently I had a friend, a high school classmate, who's taken up bridge in the last couple of years, and I see him on Bridge Base a lot, which is exciting. And so I actually forwarded him your weekly hand, because I think it gives somebody, like, I really like that you've got a structure to what you're doing. I love to hear you say, you know, like how you want to see people really learn. And I just thought it was a great way, even though he's relatively a beginner, it's just like, I think it gives him a great opportunity to kind of see bridge, what's possible. And I think, you know, so I'm excited to be able to share that with,
yeah, so the interactive problems, it's based on the idea that I really think that you need to actually make mistakes to learn. I think that that's really, no matter what, there's no amount of lessons that you can come to where you're just hearing it, that you can't process all that information. You need to actually get at the table having real world experience. And so the interactive problems take advantage of Shark's amazing software. It's really unbelievable where I can kind of put in a single hand and tell the robots a little bit what to do, like what to lead, what the bidding is, and I can drop the person into the seat of the declarer. In these case, declarer. There's ways of doing other kinds of problems, but for these interactive problems that I'm sending out, basically, like I record myself for 5 minutes playing the hand. Maybe I do a video where I start by saying, well, this is how the auction went. And now this is this setting. Now go ahead and play the hand. And then they click the button. They play the hand themselves. They make the mistakes, which you have to make. Everybody makes them. And once you've made them, it's like in the bank, and it's part of who you are as a bridge player. That's how I got better. I didn't have any fast track to learning. I was younger, so maybe it came quicker. But really, it's been a process of 30 years of making mistake after mistake after mistake, and just having seen things before. So the interactive problems are just a really bite-sized way to learn. Yeah.
And you've got, how many lessons do you have now, like in your online?
My store, I would say something like 100, and each one is like really its own little encyclopedia on the topic. I really made it an effort to go all out overboard, to be honest with you, on every single one of my classes, so that because I always felt like I wanted it such that anybody who was a first-time student who would ever discover one of my classes, I wanted them to have a good experience that time. And I didn't want to have them come and be like, oh, this wasn't worth $15 or whatever I was charging for it. And so I feel like that was always been my goal when I'm making a lesson, is to make it so good and so thorough that if you came looking for a topic, that you for sure would walk away saying, man, I learned everything I wanted to learn about that topic, and I can't wait to learn more. And that's kind of been my MO for the whole time. Drove myself a little bit crazy, honestly. When I set up a lesson and I put a topic on the board, I spend hours and hours thinking about what to talk about, planning it, and really also, even though I am an expert player, I also like to have everything that I'm teaching double checked. So I check with all of my friends and partners. I ask people lots of questions just to double check. Am I really teaching the right thing? Is this really what people play? Like, so that I feel like my end product, the thing that I'm presenting to my students, is I can feel proud that that's what they're getting what they want. Yeah. So yeah, 100, basically 100 classes. My most popular series is my master series, which is where I kind of got the idea that I wanted to just share what an expert system was. It's not the expert system. It's not like expert standard. It's what I play when I play with my partners like Cran or Vinny or what I was playing with Warren. And so I just kind of taught that stuff from start to finish, although there's still a few missing pieces. I'm going to have to finish off the series. And what happens is people come and they take one class, and I can see their path of their customer. And then a couple hours later, they buy another one, and then they get another one, and they get hooked on it. And because it's like that, you realize, because I tried to make sure in every class that I was teaching something like style oriented, so that even if you're not going to play any of my expert methods, you're going to hear me talk a little bit about my style, like opening bids, why I open light, why we went to 2/1 or whatever, things that anybody can apply to their game. And then I talk about obviously the actual system and why I play it, and I just making sure that the advanced players get what they want, the intermediate players get what they want, and everybody comes out of each lesson like learning something. You don't have to play the whole system to get a lot out of that that series or any of the series. Yeah.
What's the video you're working on right now?
So it's funny, the video well, I have not started working on it. I'm like brainstorming phase still, but what's happened is, in the last few months on Into Bridge, they've programmed their robot to play my system. And so now I get a chance to play with the robot that plays my system, and which I love. It's awesome. And it's awesome for my students to be able to go and practice what they've learned with the robot. Yeah. But what's happened is every so often I come to a spot and the robot doesn't play what I play when I'm playing with Cran or Vinny. And I'm like, oh, because I haven't taught this yet. And and so it's frustrating me that the robot isn't. So the thing I'm working on right now is on my how to bid over week twos. Like it tilts me that Leah doesn't play preempt key card over week twos. And so that's one thing so I'm going to go do a whole lesson on preempts. I'm going to talk about my style based on vulnerability, what seat and vulnerability, how to further the preempt, and but also like what I like to play for 2 of a major, two anything to know, and preempt key card, and just go through everything like I do. I take a whole topic and just go start to finish and feel like I've taught the whole subject and feel like I can be done with it. So that's my next topic.
So that lesson would be like, what would be the title of that lesson?
Week twos and preempts, maybe I'll call it something like that.
And that's going to be one lesson. All that
it's one lesson. That's what I've been doing. I kind of go overboard. I make sure to fill 90 minutes, but I've never been able to finish a class in 90 minutes because I always just want to make sure that I get the whole topic taught
So one lesson is 90 minutes.
90 minutes, and honestly. Video. The reality is each lesson, if you really want to get it, you're going to have to watch it a few times. It's enough content that you can kind of come back to it. And I built the lessons with that in mind, that knowing that I would be giving the student access to just review it over and over again. The notes are really, really thorough. Like, and just they're things. It's basically like almost like an encyclopedia that the students can go back to look through when they need to, like, oh, this situation came up. Let me go back there. And they go to the no Trump opening section and they see, and then they can read what I wrote. And so in the process of doing those lessons, again, I was teaching so much content, and really you can't learn things and then just play them perfectly. You need practice. Like practice is a critical component. Right. So about a year into my pandemic experience, I and teaching online, I discovered SharkBridge and their ability to kind of put the students in seats. Right. And so I kind of developed a couple different class types through Shark. One was those declare play where you have the hero in the south seat playing the hand with a pre-designed auction and a lead so that the student, but then the other is bidding practice, and bidding practice reinforces topics. So I'll give you as an example, and I'm not sure if I've talked about this online or not before, but with reverses, I have a thorough classes on expert system over reverses, like how to slow down after reverses, because it's a complicated topic that most teachers don't get into because it's a little bit too difficult for early bridge players to really understand the complexities of it. So they kind of leave it off to the side, and nobody ever really did a good job of teaching it. So my reverses class actually got shared a lot. Like people when they found it, they're like, oh, finally somebody's teaching stuff over reverses. So the student learns about reverses and it all makes sense during the class. But the problem is that after the class, how long does it take for reverses to naturally come up at the table? Yeah. Like you have to be playing relentlessly for example hands to come up. Yeah. And so what Shark enables you to do is give the student like repeated reverse practice, like 20 hands or 30 hands at a time. And so when I started using the Shark software, the first time I organized the class, and at that time everybody was showing up at the same time. They would come and I could watch everybody bid the hand. So I put the students into their tables as partnerships, and I watched them bid the first practice set that I designed for reverses. Yeah. And it was scary. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe how little that they were able to retain. Right. So I'm like, well, we have to keep at this. I'm not going to give up on it. So Then the next week we did a second week with another 20 example hands, and it was slightly better. Yeah. Then the third week we did another 15 or 20 reverse hands, and it was getting significantly better. And by the fourth week of relentlessly practicing reverses, everybody was using the slowdown effectively. It was like night and day, mind blowing. Like, wow. Okay, now I understand the recipe for how to teach and have somebody get something that it's irresponsible to just teach a topic. That it has to be a topic with associated practice, because the practice is really what reinforces. That's what makes us bridge players. Is we learn something, we see it at the table, we screw it up, we see it again, we screw it up again, and eventually it just we get it and we're able to effectively do it. And so what technology is now letting people do is fast track, like rather than letting it come up organically, we can artificially build that experience. And so I've done that for all of my topics that I've taught now, built associated practice sets for people to go and reinforce the topic.
And is that on Sharkbridge that does, like, is part of your thing?
So it's interesting was when it started, Shark was like this live software where there had to be like a controller, a person who sat the people down. But the problem was that as the restrictions from the pandemic started lifting, people weren't able to be at this place at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday or whatever. So it became not so practical for me to run these classes, because I wasn't earning enough, until now Shark developed the software where you can kind of access the hands on the website without somebody controlling it, which is where it is now. And it's so now, so now I've started the kind of built up, and they're available in the store where you can kind of just go and buy the practice hands. And
And does that, like, can you do that with a computer partner and also with the actual partner?
Yeah, both. You kind of load up the set, and then as soon as you're in the chair, you can there's a little button that lets you type an email address in. You type it in, your partner gets a link, and then they just come to the table and they're sitting, and you can bid. And it's pretty cool because after you're done bidding the hand, it pops up with like your auction, my suggested auction, and what I've written about the hand. So you can kind of digest it, see where you went wrong, which bid was where we deviated. And honestly, sometimes it's people decide to play their own system and they still come and do these practicing. And as long as they're getting to the right final contracts all the time, you don't have to bid the hand the way that I said that you had to bid it. Yeah. But all I'm doing is saying what I think I would bid with both hands and why. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a friend. So my friend, we'll come back to this. But my friend is the director of golf at my golf club, and he and another golfing friend of mine want to learn bridge. So if you were me and you had these two people like thinking live, what would you do?
I've been struggling with this question a lot lately. I've had a lot of people coming up to me and asking me that, almost framing it exactly that way. There's not an amazing way to quickly pick up the game on the internet. Like Tricky Bridge is pretty cool. We're working with Audrey Grant. I'm working with Audrey Grant to help get her content available, like with her practice hands and her lessons online, like for new beginners. I mean, it depends what kind of people they are. If they have an endless amount of time, I would probably search out a teacher in their area and have them sit and work with them. But there needs to be a software solution where people can go and just kind of rip through a bunch of quick lessons and get onboarded. I'm dealing with this with my kids too. It's really a difficult problem. I want them to play bridge, but there's not an easy solution. Even Tricky Bridge, it's slow in its own way for them. They didn't get hooked on it. Which seems like a pretty cool concept, the Tricky Bridge, and I think that they're doing pretty well with getting lots of people onboarded. My kids were not jumping at it, so I don't know. But that's kids anyway. I don't know if it's even built for your two golfer friends. It's a hard problem. It's a hard problem.
Say you had like first crack with them though. Let's say you've got one session. Like you're going to give them an intro to bridge. What are you going to do?
Well, and do they know anything about the mechanics at all?
I think they know tricks. I think they know trick taking. Maybe they've played spades.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would start by doing a very quick review of the mechanics of the game. I would get them playing cards very, very quickly. I would give them, it's easier to do from a single person perspective. Like we're putting them in a declare play chair and saying, hey, here, try to take tricks, try and give them a contract and get them hooked on that idea. Then if I had 1 hour, that's what I would be doing. I would probably be showing them like the early stage bridge master hands, which are super simple, and give you a chance to kind of tell them the goal. You have to take 9 tricks and see if they're interested in that. If they get hooked in that, then finding them a path for how to learn bidding. I mean, it would depend on how they like to learn. Finding them a book, or I've never been able to learn from books. Books is like the last way that I would ever be able to process learning a new game. I would need somebody to explain it. And really, I just need to be playing whatever game it is, doing badly at it, and figuring it out as I go. That's who I am. I don't know how people learn. I'm not a beginner teacher. That is definitely not what I am. I've found my way with teaching intermediate players how to be advanced players. That's really the market that I am after, and that I enjoy anyway. Yeah.
But I really think, honestly, I mean, and maybe I'm just like totally in the clouds about this. I really like, I'm going to send them that. I'm going to give them your email thing, because I think it's like really helpful to have someone like explaining higher level and walking through higher level concepts and giving them a chance to play. Maybe it's like a waste of time, but
no, the interactive problems are awesome, because the interactive problems, you don't make them bid. That's the hard part for new bridge players, is getting people bidding. That's what I've seen with my kids. They're perfectly happy playing cards and trying to take tricks, but the bidding, like even explaining the goal of the game is to find a trump suit and to bid game to get the game bonus. Like it's complicated.
Yeah, totally.
So finding your trick with your friends, and I think with anybody, is finding them a route that they realize that they love the game. They don't need to become good at all. They just need to realize that it's a fun game to play.
So where are your kids on that sort of spectrum then?
They're getting there. They've got it in they think that they're bridge players, for one thing. You ask them. Yeah, they're if you ask them, do you know how to play bridge? They're like, yeah, I know how to play bridge. That's their answer. Are they? I mean, they know how to count their points. They know how to open the bidding. They know the mechanics of the game very well, and kind of giving them a rough idea that you need to draw trumps before you can enjoy your side suit winners. They've learned the hard way by trying to take tricks outside and having their stuff get roughed. But where are they? They only really want to play bridge with other kids. They're not interested in going online, even, which is surprising to me with the amount of video games and Fortnite and Brawl Stars or whatever that they play. They play the number of games that they play. It's but bridge on the internet really didn't. It didn't hook them in. They want to be playing with other kids. So every summer nationals, we throw them in there at the youth NABC, and they have a bunch of kids there, which is an amazing thing. I just wish that at the nationals they had more than like those 3 days of the youth NABC, where kids of parents who are bridge players could come and just either learn card games, just some kind of childcare that's not based on putting the kids in front of a DVD, but rather having them learning on a path to bridge. I wish there was something like that, because that's where my kids, that's where that's their entire bridge experience has been at the youth NABC, playing in the side room where they have helpers at every table, which is fantastic. They do an amazing job. I just wish it was longer and more structured for kids to feel comfortable that have never played before, and to give us an area where kids who have learned but are still like very, very early, and just kind of separating out the groups. That I think that I wish they had more of that at tournaments. I think they need more of that at tournaments to entice parents to come to tournaments as well, because that's lost. When I was a kid, the nationals, my parents would bring me, and they had amazing childcare, absolutely amazing childcare. I went to the Washington NABC was when I don't know, maybe like I want to say 1990. I was about 91, somewhere in there, 92. They dropped me at childcare and went to play in the tournament. The childcare was so amazing that I couldn't wait to come back to the tournament. The thing was, there were a lot of bridge players who had kids back then, so it was a little different time. And obviously, as the decades have passed, there haven't been a new influx of 40-year-olds who have, or 30-year-olds that have 10-year-old kids. There aren't those people, but they need to try to get that market back. The problem is that they completely eliminated the childcare from the nationals. There's no childcare at all.
Oh, really?
So people with kids who want to come to the nationals, there's nothing. You can't do anything. There's no solution. So we're obviously a special case because we're bridge pros and we kind of desperately need it for our own business. But obviously we can afford to hire a babysitter or do whatever because we're being paid to be there. But like for the average person coming on a vacation wanting to come play bridge at the nationals, if they have kids, then there's nothing that they can do, when they could use that, I think, as a way to both seed the younger people with cards, which I think is such an important thing. And that's the one thing we've done with our kids our whole lives, is we got cards in their hands when they were 3 years old, whether it was with Go Fish or random games from Sweden that Jenny played or as a kid, or that I played as a kid. And we've just kept relentlessly playing new games, teaching them new games, not so much with tricks, but just getting them strategizing and planning and counting cards and doing stuff. So, I think that the ACBL could do better with that, with enticing kids to come to the nationals and more enticing parents to come to nationals who have kids, and then by doing that, by providing the kids with something fun and that gets them to start to like the game.
Have you, what does it sound like when you say overhear one of your children describe what you and Jenny do for a living? Have you got any funny stories about
I mean, they're really just proud. They think I'm like a YouTube celebrity, which is so awesome. Oh, my dad's a streamer. They're really happy to tell their friends, but they're pretty proud of us. They think we're really good, and they're proud of it. You can hear them telling their friends, our parents are amazing bridge players, and they're proud of it. So it's cool. Yeah, I don't know, not funny, but they're definitely definitely think that we're it's nice that they are proud of it. It's cool. Yeah.
Well, I imagine there are, a handful of, you definitely live in a pocket where there's a fair number more bridge pros than other parts of the US, but I would imagine you're fairly unique in terms of that for the other kids that your kids are.
They have exactly. No, then there's no bridge. Well, except Kevin Bathurst lives on just down my street, and my kids are close friends with his kids, and so they know that he's also a bridge professional or whatever. So it's a little less unique, but for everybody else, obviously, it's just it's a cool story for them to tell people, and for us when people meet us, they're like my hockey team, when they found out that I was a professional bridge player, they're like, a professional bridge player, what's that? And then I told them that Vinny was too, and they're like, what? How is it possible that you both are bridge players? Yeah.
I was trying to find out if you guys were the first line defense on the Spartans.
They usually list us first. We're pretty good at not letting the opponents. We're pretty good at not letting the opponents score when we're on the ice. I'm physically not as capable. Vinny skated his whole life, so he's unbelievable. Actually, he's so much fun to watch play. His skating, his size. He's a big guy. Yeah, he's just a great hockey player, and the team loves having him around because he's amazing. I am not nearly the same level because I didn't start skating even till I was 36 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so for me, it was I've had to pick it up and learn how to skate and keep up. But I found that my mental game, being able to stay a step ahead of the play, I'm able to cover for the fact that I'm physically not as good as a lot of the people on the ice by just being in the right place at the right time. And it's amplified when I'm on the ice with Vinny, who's thinking at the same level and same pace that I am. We're kind of know where each other are, where to be. We're very complimentary to each other. I say this because he's unbelievable, so it's easy to compliment him. But I feel like I compliment him well because he knows that I'm thinking that I'm thinking at the same pace that he is. So he sends the puck to places knowing I'm going to be there, not without seeing me there, kind of thing. And we definitely very rarely get scored on when we're out on the ice.
Your team must have been happy to have two Canadians on it when
until they saw me skate. Like, you're not Canadian.
Just to give you like how little I know about hockey, in spite of your sort of encouraging me to learn more about it on our when we did this previously. I was playing at a golf tournament at my friend's club in Maryland, and this guy John Carlson, who's a defenseman for the Capitals, was there, and he had played in the morning, and I didn't meet him, but he was like literally he was right by me, and one of the guys who played with him, and I said, he said he plays hockey, and I said he played in the group with John, and I said, is he any good?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my little celebrity run-in. I think they won the tournament. I think he's a pretty good golfer. I think they shot 9
I think there's a correlation between hockey and golf, not just because you're swinging a stick that's very similar in size and whatever, and it's the same hip rotation and stuff when you're really trying to get power into a slap shot and sending a golf ball, but also they play hockey in the winter and they have summers off. So I think that they just like golf is a natural thing to do in the summer in a lot of places. So.
Who are you rooting for in the Stanley Cup Finals?
If my friends from Florida are watching, Florida. if my family and friends from Canada are watching, the Oilers. I don't know. Whatever. I'm when the Leafs lose, I kind of disconnect a little bit, which is every single year. So since became a Leafs fan when I could, 8 years old, they've been terrible since I was born. So.
We recently were talking at the team trials, and you said I was talking about Aaron Silverstein and his daughter Avery and how much she's gotten into it, and you said that's the dream.
Yeah,
about your kids. Do they kind of know that, or
no? Oh no! I would never let them know that I want them to play bridge. No chance. Luckily, we're long enough into this podcast that there's no chance they would have made it this far. Yeah. So they no, I've gone the route of like whatever you guys want. If you want to play bridge, you should play bridge. If you don't want to play bridge, don't play. Don't play because we want you to play. It's got to be because you want to play. That's always been the thing. I'm like, but the one thing I do implore, like, tell them is, look, we love bridge enough to make it our entire life.
Yeah.
So and it's done amazing things for us. We've gotten to meet friends and travel all over the world and do amazing things, and because of it, I'm like. It might be worth looking into, and if you want to, you've got some good resources around the house that can help you. But I'm not try to force them into it, definitely not. But now we're making a push to enable them, because I really believe first of all, as from like what we were talking about childcare, obviously our lives would get like infinitely easier if their childcare was playing in the duplicate game, as opposed to us having to figure out but I just see like families where their kids are playing. It's so cool. Like I would love to have. I love what I had. I got to play bridge with my grandma and my parents. I want my kids to play with my mom. Like she would love to play with them, and I would love them to have that same experience that I had. Just because I think that bridge is an amazing thing for young people to learn how to interact with older people as well, like just learning how to respect older people, and just being, even though I'm sure when I was a kid I was very disrespectful to the older people, you still learn as you grow up how to behave around people in a different way and work together with people. And so I definitely desperately want them to, and I think that we're on the path. We're actually discussing, it isn't set yet, even flying out to San Francisco. This is going to probably be released later than this has happened already, but because they're running one of those camps at the Palo Alto Bridge Club, like Kevin Rosenberg and Amber Lynn and Will Watson, and those guys are do a camp for their local kids. And we were thinking, hey, maybe that's the answer, just to fly them out there. And which is a little ridiculous to fly for 6 hours and when I emailed them about it, they're like, we were not really doing this for people to come from out of town. Like, I don't know what you're expecting. I'm like, no, it's not about that though. It's about honestly, what we're thinking is if we go there, we can learn the formula and maybe replicate it over here. Cause that's what we would really like is to kind of give our kids an environment locally where there are other kids that they can befriend. Totally. It's not just about playing against other kids. Kids who are into bridge, I've seen it with them in chess. They're like-minded kids. When you surround yourself with other kids who like to play games, board games and card games, they're similar to you. So it's like it's creating a nice natural environment of kids that you can get along with. Where just
right. When is the camp?
It's next weekend. It's the 29th. I think it's both weekends, but this weekend's not happening because our daughter's still at some overnight camp, and we're going to Universal Studios for a few days and getting the kids that fun on they just did the whole Harry Potter thing. So they watched all the movies. So we're going to go take them to Universal.
And how old are they?
Our daughter is 14, almost 15, and our boys are 12 and 8.
Because you really got into the mind at the with your
we actually we just played the other day. We got through as the four of us with our two boys. We got through 6 levels without a mistake, and then level 7, we lost every life. It's a great game, really fun game, and I mean it teaches you to have like an internal clock and work together as teammates, and it's a little easier now that our 8-year-old is 8 as opposed to even when we taught the game, even in the last 6 months or whatever. You can see so much development in his patience and his understanding of his internal clock. He was way better when we were playing yesterday than he was the last time. And fun game.
Do you guys play like games after dinner, or like what's
Well, we always bring a deck of cards when we go to restaurants. That's one thing that we do, is so that because we've tried not to let them be on iPads and phones at the dinner table. It's not always possible, but that's kind of been our mentality. And so we bring a deck of cards to dinner when we're out waiting for food. We'll play card games at home after we just play. We're home a lot with our kids. We have a life where we don't have a normal life where we're working until, I mean, I actually have kind of turned my life into more of a 9 to 5 type of thing where I'm booking all of my hours and doing that. But Jenny's around and we play lots of games, but at random times. It's not after dinner. I would say that after dinner, we're usually at the stage of the day where we finally let them watch some TV and chill out. It's earlier in the day that we're trying to keep them off the screens. That's when we're putting in our time with the board games and stuff. That is the constant battle of parenting right now, is keeping your kids off of devices. It's something that no other generation had to deal with, and it's brutal.
So what's your card game of choice with them?
So we play a bunch of games. There's a Swedish game called Gurka, which cucumber in English, that we play. It's good for many people. Because it doesn't really matter that you get 6 cards each, so you can have, I guess, up to 9 people, 8 people. I guess 8 people would be the max, and so we can kind of play. And if we have an extra people, it's good for 5, and then we can add 6. We play this game called Cochon, which is pig in French. It's a trump game, which I'm sure you've played, where you start with 1 card each and you got to kind of guess how many tricks you're going to take. You flip 1 card up to say what the trumps are. And then you kind of guess, and then 2 cards and then 3 cards. And then you kind of, with the trumps always being exposed, but the last person isn't allowed to make it correct.
Right.
So so that's that we play that game a lot. We play what we call president, or what do we call it? Deuces. Deuces. We've renamed it Deuces. What else do we play? We play bridge. The kids actually ask to play bridge a lot, whether it be 3-handed or honeymoon bridge, or depending on how many people we have, like 9-5-2. Do you know that game? It's just, I mean, it's 3-handed bridge. You take out 1 card, and then so that it divides by 51. You usually take out the 2 of clubs, and 1 person has to take 9 tricks, and that person gets to pick trumps. 1 person has to take 5 5 tricks, and that which is actually the hardest of the 3, and one person gets to take 2 tricks, and you kind of got to go plus. You know, like if the person who has to take 2 tricks takes 6, they go plus 4, and the goal of the game is to get to 10.
Oh, so you want to
take
you
tricks.
want you? It's not a cooperative game.
No, it's 3-handed. Like everybody's on their own.
Oh,
but it's the same idea, trick taking game, and so we do that. We
would you consider that for the my 3-person, like these 2 golfers?
No, I think with 3 people, you've got enough to put down a dummy and have 2 people defend and 1 person declare. I think that's the way to do it. I think that's what you want, people playing cards. That's I wish there was more of a repository of good hands that you could just sit down for new players. There probably should be just like basic hands where there's kind of a general concept on defense and a general concept on declare play, but it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the reality is in the beginning, it doesn't have to be hard. Like there doesn't even need to be a point to the hand. It just needs to be a makeable hand. That's what I was thinking. Like for my kids, they don't need to be tricked on the first hand that they're playing. The first hand that they can have 9 obvious tricks. And if they get their 9 tricks, you'd be like, well done. Great. Congratulations. If they don't, whatever, you move to the next hand. I don't think that you even need to start with anything even slightly complicated, or even like, I don't even think there needs to be a problem. It's hard enough for them to sort their cards and realize not to play their aces and kings on the same tricks and things like that. The little mechanics of it take a while to get used to. So you got to go, take, I would ease them in, but if I had 3 people and they were actually people who wanted to play bridge, I would pre-deal the hands. That's the hard part, pre-dealing hands. And because if you pre-deal the hands, you can put them in a contract and a reasonable contract, no trumps, honestly, for the start. And then trumps, pick a trump suit for them and say, like, tell them a goal. And eventually, like, you can explain to them that in the future, we're going to be bidding and that's how we're going to decide the contract. But in the beginning, just getting them trying to make a contract and trying to beat a contract seems like a good place to start.
I don't think I've told this story before, but it's amusing to me. Like your passion for bridge is really palpable, just like here in this, virtual space where we're talking. Like your enthusiasm is, I love it. And it's a little bit of a surprise to me, just because one time at the San Francisco Nationals, I think it was in 2012, I was talking to you, and this is different, but I was talking to you after a day of play, and I guess I was whining about how like I didn't do as well as I wanted to, or I messed up on a couple of things. And you said to me, and it totally shut me up, yeah, I played bridge today too.
Yeah. It's the truth. That's funny.
One thing Cranyak said to me, a partner of yours and a teammate of yours, when you guys were, on a great run, he said that he doesn't, like, you do not want somebody to come back, or you don't want to hear somebody say you're sorry.
Who, me?
Yeah. You don't want, maybe, he didn't say it like in a negative way.
Well, I mean, my opinion when you're playing, at least in an expert level, is that everybody knows they've made mistakes, and everybody knows that they've known they've made mistakes, and everybody wants to win. I say sorry too much. It's funny to hear that he has the impression that I don't like it when he says sorry, because I'm very self-reflective. I feel sorry always. My life is in a state of sorry when I'm playing bridge. Always, like I never feel comfortable, never confident. Always on my own case, like, man, I should have got that right. But I'm feeling sorry all the time. That I don't think that you need to express it to everybody. I think it gets annoying, like not annoying, but it's just like we're all sorry. We're all sorry.
But how do you think you like channel that in a way, like, because you feel it? How do you channel it in a way where you're not actually telling people you're sorry? Like, do you think about that at all?
Well, I don't think about it, but I've definitely adjusted my behavior to, I preempt my opponents, like my partner. That's one thing that I do, is I preempt my partner on when we have a bad board. I'm very quick to say, man, your 2 of spades should have been enough for me. something like that. Like that was a good card that you played. And I'll say the word sorry, but it's more about making my partner not be anxious, that because usually when you get a hand wrong, especially on defense, both people could have done something very often. And but so I'm very quick to kind of take the blame. That's something that's who I am. So I think that's helpful for my partners. I hope it's helpful for my partners to take some weight off of them so that they're not sitting and second guessing themselves. Because I don't mind that feeling of the weight on me. I don't mind if people think that losing is my fault. At the end of the day, you either win or you lose. And I feel like the more that weight that I can take off of my teammates and my partners, the more likely I am to win, because I think I can handle it. I think I'm used to it. I'm feeling that way anyway. So I really try my best to make my partners feel confident and feel like it was. So maybe at the end of the day, people they're like, oh man, he sucks. He's getting he could have got so many of these hands wrong. But I don't think so. I think that in the end, what really comes out is that they're playing their best and therefore we're doing better. Yeah.
Different subject. Your partner in your bridge teaching, it seems like, is your mother.
Yeah, so that was honestly the best part about the pandemic by far. It was that my mom and I moved away from her, right? Yeah. I moved to Florida and in a totally different environment. Barely ever spoke to her. I mean, I call her when I'm on my way to hockey and stuff, but like I didn't get to spend time with her. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like we were living in the same house. We would go, and she was unbelievably helpful. First of all, we taught lessons together. So, which was really fun, but more importantly, we designed the lessons together. So we talked through all these hands and we changed the cards, and it was fun arguing with her because sometimes I wanted it to be a little more aggressive and she's like, are you crazy? You know, like going the back and forth. In retrospect, I wish we had recorded our lesson creations, like Zooms, because it was really fun to argue back and forth and yeah, so I got to spend a ton of quality time with her. And then, so we did a whole series, which honestly, that might be the best series of lessons that we have on my website, which is the competitive bidding series, where it's more focused on lower intermediates and teach like unbelievably. There's some things that I'm amazed that the world doesn't know that are completely standard. Like we did this class called Dealing with Overcalls, and Dealing with Overcalls, we did it in 2 parts. And the competitive doubles, like, I open a club, they overcall a spade, you bid 2 hearts, and they bid 2 spades. That opener on their second turn, when they double, that they're just saying, I have a good hand. It's forward going. It's like, okay, I have too good of a hand to pass. And the same thing if over 2 spades, if opener passes and it comes passed back to the 2 heart bidder, it's the same idea, that doubles like a way of getting back in to say, I just have a good hand. Right. It's our hand. Let's go. And like, that's a concept that nobody knows. And so when we started doing the Dealing with Overcalls 1 class, everybody in our whole class was like, what are you? I've never heard of this. What is the name for this? What is this? And my mom and I were like, these are just standard doubles. So we realized, like, okay, we really need to reinforce this. So then the next class, Dealing with Overcalls 2, like really dug into those doubles. And so those intermediate classes actually are some of the most, if you can know those competitive bidding agreements really well, that gets you so far in your scores and how you're doing. I feel fundamentally taking tricks and competitive bidding are what win or lose your club games. And what most people play are club games. They're playing pair games, whether it's on BBO speedballs or 18 board things, or going to their club, or everybody's playing pairs these days. And those to me are the 2 easiest ways to get better scores, are learning how to get more over tricks. So I really put a focus. I don't know if you've noticed the flavor of these interactive problems. It's almost always, it's about over tricks and not about making your contract. Because when you read books, it's always like, focused on making your contract, but everybody's playing the form of the game where over tricks are just as important, and nobody's really taught. So I've really put much more of a focus. I really try hard to kind of add over tricks, available over tricks in my problems to like purposely. And I don't really tell the student like to look for that over trick, but you want to have a mentality of like, just like, how can I make that extra trick? Yeah. So anyway, the competitive bidding thing, this all started with us talking about my mom. So we did that series together. Lately, I've been really busy. She's been really busy. We haven't done as much together, but we every time we talk, we're like, we need to just get back to work and build more classes together and do the stuff. So I'm guessing that when things calm down a little, we will probably start working together a little bit more. She just won the Canadian Women's Championship, so she's going to go to Argentina on the Canadian Women's team. So I'm so pumped for her. It's so excited. I'm going anyway to play the transnationals, but so I'll see her there, and I'm just really happy for her. She loves the game as much as you can see my enthusiasm for the game. My mom has exactly the same. That's where I got it all. She loves the game as much as anybody that you'll ever meet. Obsessed. She's an obsessive games player. So is my grandma, her mom. Like my grandma, the thing that I remember with her was every day first of all, she was a completely obsessed bridge player. Like if she ended up in hospital, the moment they discharged her, her words were, "Take me to the bridge club." When she would come home from the bridge club in the afternoon, she would come back from my mom's game. They would come home together, and my grandma would sit down and she would just start playing these 3 different variants of solitaire, like constantly just challenging herself mentally to stay focused on cards. And my mom is the same, except for with my mom now it's Wordle, it's the Into Bridge Daily. She does her little but she's just constantly playing games and keeping their mind active. And because of that, I believe that they're sharper than the average person. And like my grandma, when she was in her 80s, was as sharp as anybody you could come. When you play bridge with her, she was feisty and with it and never lost a beat. And my mom is similar. She's constant. Yeah. So I think that we all have that. I've got that in my blood or whatever. I've copied their behavior and yeah.
Well,
so
how
really
proud
happy.
of you was your grandmother of your accomplishments?
Well, she didn't really get to experience so much of my accomplishments. She didn't last until my when I really became a bridge pro. I played with her every week at the bridge club, and we had our moments because I was still like a little bit of a troublemaking kid. I had a big mouth and a little bit disrespectful. That's part of what I mean about learning how to behave around older people. And no, I don't think so. I'm thinking how old was I when I don't remember the timing, but I don't believe that she was around when I started to really succeed at a national and international level.
So your wife, Jenny, is also a professional bridge player. How often do you guys play against each other?
Almost never. Yeah, almost never. Yeah, we once in a blue moon. I think BBO has good software that stops it from happening, or maybe because I feel that because we're in the same IP address or whatever, that maybe it keeps us away from, or I don't know, but it feels like almost never, but maybe once in a blue moon on BBO. We used to a little bit more frequently at the bridge club, except usually because the bridge club owner, there were multiple sections and they tried to seed the field. We would usually be in separate sections, but so not so often. We've just been talking about when we will start to play together. The problem is that, so before we had kids, it was amazing for us to be at the same tournament at the same time. And because we were together anyway. And so we were paying for the hotel room and we were paying for the flights. Once we're there, it was great for us to work together. But then when we had kids, it became way different where one of us needed to be available for the kids. And so, we've really kind of stayed away from playing at the same time for the last 15 years or so. But now our little one's 8. We're talking about maybe trials, playing the mixed trials together. But that it's just, we're thinking next one or whatever. But we're almost at that stage where we can start going away at the same time again and not feel like we're really harming the kids by leaving them home for the World Championships is a bit of a hassle because it's 2 weeks is the tournament. Plus,
in October this year too, or something.
Yeah. And plus you have often this time, actually, at least it's in the same time zone or a similar time zone. But if the tournament's ever in China or India or whatever, you have to leave. It's an extra days of travel and actually in Marrakesh, it's just a big time change. We both went. It was leaving our kids for 3 weeks, and it was hard on them, hard on them. Like, in fact, we kind of, when we got back from Marrakesh, we were like, yeah, we can't let this happen again for a little while. So, so even for the trials situation this time, we both played on the Rosenthal team. So that way, if I didn't qualify in the Open, then she would get to play the mixed. And so it was a little bit easier for us to kind of regulate that. It feels like every time I win the trials, she wins her trials right after. It's been that way anyway.
But you've never played against each other in like a big
well, we have. If you watch the old documentary that they made on CTV, they filmed us. She psyched against me in the Risinger and won a board, and we ended up missing qualifying by a half a board, and they caught on me giving her a hard time about, like, I can't believe you psyched against me. No, we don't play in the same events, right? She's usually in the last 15 years playing women's events, so we don't really compete against each other so much. We've
got a couple of the UVA Bridge Club kids. I think you gave them full access to your library of deals. They're both, I spoke to both of them this morning. They're both very complimentary and thankful. It sounds like you gave all the kids in the U.S. Bridge Federation.
And it's not just U.S. If you're out there and watching this podcast, if you're from Canada or you're from Denmark or whatever, if you're young, I want to help young people. I'm not in the business of selling lessons to kids. The more young people that we have becoming experts is the better. And that's what my lessons are for. They're mostly for like helping people go from like intermediate actually to expert. And so, yeah, no, I basically just, if you're a young person, you can just reach out by email and we'll just get you set up with lessons for sure.
You're doing a lot of stuff with Into Bridge. How did it come to pass? Like you were, I don't remember if you won the.
All organic. It's all organic. Yeah. They sent, I basically, anytime somebody starts something new related to Bridge, I'm early adopter. I check it out, see what's going on. And I tried their product with ranked games. I loved it. And I played a bunch of it and I gave them a bunch of feedback. I'm like, I need this. I want this. I want this. But just I'm just a player on their site. I don't work with them or for them. But at some point when they were, it's basically, I just want to embrace new things at Bridge and want them to get bigger. And because I think the more competitive of an environment there is in the playing space, then in my opinion, if there's Bridge Base when they were on their own, they weren't doing enough to grow the game. And so the more competitors that they have, I just think it's good for the world. I love Bridge Base. Actually, I think Bridge Base is amazing. Yeah. It's nothing against Bridge Base. I just think that the best outcome for Bridge would be us to have a lot of platforms that, instead of fighting for the same pie of Bridge players, that they're compelled to each work on their own initiatives to bring new players into the game, because that's going to be the easiest way for them to make money, is to get a new customer rather than fighting to pull customers from the other platforms. So I just, like, whenever somebody's doing something new, I just want to support them. And so I got on board with Into Bridge just by playing and giving them feedback and helping them. And then I played the ranked games and I was very happy for them to use my name to promote it in any way, because obviously the more experts they have on the site are the better. And then eventually they were developing their robot Leah, and they kind of said to me, hey, we are going to eventually allow Leah to to play different systems. And would you like us to work on your system? And I'm like, that would be absolutely amazing, because my students, their biggest problem is that when they learn my system, that they're like, I don't have anybody to play with it in my area, or so. So I basically gave Luke, their programmer, access to all of my lessons and all of my practice sets, so that he could not only use the lessons to teach the robots, but to use the practice sets to reinforce whether the robot was doing what it was supposed to do. And so basically, and it's amazing how good it is. Like he having an expert Bridge player programming the robot turned out to be amazing, because also my interactions with Luke, where he's like, I'm not sure what you mean here, or like, what's going on here, and I could just like explain to him in very few words, and then he makes the proper fix. And now what's also better is, because I love playing on Into Bridge, I can go and practice with this robot, and I see, and I'm playing my system with the robot, and when it does something I doesn't like, I quickly take a screenshot, send it in a WhatsApp message to Luke, and he gives me the thumbs up, got it, and boom, it's going to be fixed for the next patch, and it's getting better. And if you saw my text thread with Luke, like I can go for like, I have sent him like so many, and poor guy, I'm sure that he deals with it with lots of people, but and they've also made a partnership with Qbids, with that Qbids also, which also absolutely amazing app. If anybody hasn't heard of Qbids, it is awesome for bidding with your partner. I love the weekly. I bid with Raj every week in the weekly, because the weekly, all these good pairs are doing it. Like I can go see how like Joe and Brad bid their hands, or like Short and Boss, or whatever, all these expert pairs. And it's really great bidding software, but it is even better now that they have a robot. And even better now that the robot can play my system. So now what I can do is go in Qbids, and I can say like dealing with no trump interference. Like my partner opens one no, I want to practice my transfer Lebensaal. I set up a set on no trump entry, and I deal myself. But instead of it being like an asynchronous thing where I bid and I wait for my partner to bid, the robot immediately. So I'm actually just bidding hands with the robot, and it's quick, and the amount of practice you can get. Bridge players are going to have the ability to get better so much quicker now than they ever were before. It's kind of amazing. So but it's cool, the power of working together, right? These are two unrelated companies, Qbids and Into Bridge, that they're collaborating on the robot. And then the fact that I collaborated with them with my lessons, it's the power of working together is pretty amazing. And we're just starting. So it's like, we're seeing like, it's going to get better and better.
So like with Luke, for example, when you tell him about a situation where the computer didn't do what you wanted it to do with your system, like most of them are obvious. Like most of them, like the robot does something ridiculous. And so he knows, and he's able, in fact, it's better if I don't say anything to him, because he can see why it's done this ridiculous thing a lot faster than I can. So basically I just show him the things that it doesn't do. But like occasionally I'll be in a spot where like, I really want to make a bid, but I can see that the explanation for all of my bids are not good. This happens to me on BBO all the time, where like, you have no bids that fit your hand. Yeah. And so I might send him a spot like that, where I would be like, every bid in this auction I had no way forward. So I do something like that. But otherwise, sometimes he clarifies like, well, it did this because of this. And do you agree with that? And I'll be like, and we'll have a back and forth about it. But very often it's just obvious, and he just fixes whatever was going wrong. And do you find like instances of like one thing where you've given it to him? Has that same problem come up?
Well, it takes them a week or two to release the fixes, but no, I haven't seen like a repetitive problem. I usually, excuse me, if within 2 weeks or so the problem's fixed, and maybe it wasn't fixed properly and something else will go wrong, but I have not experienced the same problems coming up. No, I think that it's definitely moving forward.
It just seems like part of the challenges of bidding is like creating a robot that bids well. Is that like, how do you even like, maybe this is more of a software problem and not necessarily something that you can answer, but like, how do you even standardize it so that it like, outside of like one situation, like the meta.
It's definitely not a problem that I would want to be solving, but he seems to be doing a really good job with it. I'll tell you that, at least my experience with my system. I don't know what's going on with the other system, but my experience with my system is that she's good at evaluating, she's good at using the tools and knowing which things to use when, and so he's doing something right for sure.
And we're going to be able to get better as bridge players because we're able to primarily like bidding focus, you're saying, because we can. Yeah,
bidding. I just think the bidding is the hardest thing to get really good at, because it's very hard to things don't come up enough for you to actually get better at them. Like you don't see. Lebensaal is a perfect example where if you go to the bridge club and you ask, it's like one of the hardest systems. If people will, it's the most messed up system. Like people make mistakes with it, forget it, because the problem is it just doesn't come up enough. If it came up 17 times in a week, by the end of that week, you'd be like, I know Leventhal. I'm never going to forget it ever again. The problem is that it comes up once in January and then again in March. Sometimes you're playing with one partner that doesn't play Leventhal or whatever. It just doesn't happen. And so it just never gets reinforced. But if you go to Cupids and you select my robot and you're playing my transfer Leventhal, you can solidify it in a matter of hours. You'll never mess it up again. Like that's because once it's in there, it's in there. You don't screw up Stamen, right? Like you don't the things that come up all the time. You don't. I mean, obviously some, but some things that come up all the time, you do. But you definitely reinforce practice is the way to get really, really good at something and ingrain it into your mind. Now, is that going to teach you proper bidding judgment? No, the only thing that's going to teach you proper bidding judgment is being out there playing in high level competition and getting burned for your mistakes and seeing other people not make those mistakes and trying and working to understand what they were thinking to get their decisions right. Like that's always been how I've gotten better is I'm introspective. I look at a hand and be like, oh, I could have made that. Should I have made that? Was there anything there that I could have seen that would have helped me make that decision? And then, oh yeah, I should have known that. That was exactly what I needed to think. And then the next time, maybe I don't note it again, but as long as you keep like thinking about like what you should have seen, eventually you start to see it when you need to see it.
You started a partnership recently with Chris Wolenkin. Are you playing the, your system? He says he likes to play his partner system.
We just played one event. It wasn't really a partnership. He's got his own nationals partner and I've got my own, it was for the trials. But he was great to talk system with. He's a really high level thinker about the game, really good player. We kind of met halfway. I started by sending him notes, that I played with Warren. And we kind of trimmed him down. He kind of saw holes in some of our agreements where he's like, I can see this leading to a problem if I try to apply this here. And then we kind of talked it through and edited the document down. He had some things that he demanded or not demanded, but like very strongly suggested that's what he wanted to do, like adding multi, and just little things. Like he had this thing about transfer Lebenthal that he didn't want to play the transfers for invitational plus. He wanted to always transfer weak or better and have like 2-0 always show clubs and 3 clubs always show diamonds. Like whatever. I was happy to play whatever. Like I could adjust little details, but overall the structure was he played what I played. But I play very simple things. Like the things that are my system is not complicated. So yeah, I mean it's complicated to low-level intermediate would look at some of the stuff that we play and be like, that's ridiculous. Why would it's way too complicated? But like most of the stuff that I play is kind of expert standard, like transfers after 2-0 rebid, transfer Lebenthal, like the things that like most of the stuff that I play is very straightforward and standard. So that he was very quick and easy to talk about the system. We bid a bunch of hands and
okay. Last question, perhaps last question. What do you like to play when you open a week 2? What do you like to play 2-0 as?
Yeah, so we play Vinny. Vinny invented a system that I really, really love. So that's going to be part of my week 2 class is like introducing Vinny. I asked them, I'm like, what do you guys call it, Cran and Vinny? Because what they play, and they're like, Vinny. They don't even play it anymore because they've started playing 2 clubs, 18, 19, and all this stuff. So they've changed their system since. But yeah, it's basically like if you think about when you would normally want to bid 2-0. Yeah. Over two of a major. There's basically 2 circumstances. You're either inviting game or you're looking for slam, right? Yeah. And so they play that 2-0. First of all, does like partner, are you minimum or are you maximum? Which is like kind of a normal thing. Which I've never really subscribed to the August. It's a little bit like, is this a good suit? Is this a bad suit? It's just like, it's just too complicated. And so instead it kind of basically the way it works, I can just explain it in 2 seconds here. Three clubs says, I like my hand. I have at least a medium or better hand. Going back to 3 of your major is I hate my hand. And the other 3 steps, are showing 6 4s. low, middle, high. So the idea is that finding the 4-4 fit in the secondary suit can be absolutely huge. We often open with 4-card majors, week 2s.
Right.
So that's the idea. And then the only other thing is that over 3 clubs, I like my hand. 3 diamonds asks for shortness. And it's shocking how good finding out whether the week 2 bidder has shortness or not can help you for slam. It's amazing how often that can. And it's not just that they have shortness. You also know they're 6-3-3-1.
Yeah.
Because they didn't show the 6-4. So you end up being able to find side suit fits, and it's a pretty good system.
So 6-4-3 shows 6-4.
Yeah. I mean, you're not really opening week 2s with 6-4-3 so often, but like, yeah. It just doesn't come up very often. The idea, like, it's way more rare as far as like percentage of time you're dealt it. Plus, you have to decide to open a week 2 bid. You don't love opening week 2 bids with side voids because it adds a little bit of playing strength. Like, I don't have a rule like I wouldn't open with a void, but like you got to be careful when you have for like a random first round control that isn't counted by your high cards. It's like partners never going to really envision that. So sometimes can not find slams. And yeah, it's just so I'm not really worried about 6-4-3, but 6-4, basically you show your 6-4 like only when you like your hand.
How long do you think it's going to take you to produce this next one?
I would say that every lesson takes me between like outlining it and then ordering it and making the diagrams for like the new things that I haven't really like when I'm explaining a new system. It's the whole process, I would say, is something like 20 hours, 15 hours, something like that I would put it. But I am crazy. Like I'm sure I could do it in much less time, but I refuse to cut corners, and I'm obsessive about making sure that the end product is like the best quality that I can put out.
What's the best and worst feedback you've gotten on one of your lessons?
I mean, the best feedback, it's hard to say that there's been best feedback, but tons of people saying, wow, this is like, finally I understand this subject, or this is just the greatest. Like, I'm so glad. The number one feedback I get from people is I've been waiting my whole life for somebody to teach lessons about things like this.
Wow.
Like, it's never been content like this. That's my favorite compliment that I get. My feedback, people are pretty hesitant to give negative feedback. Sometimes once I would give a class and people would say like it's too complicated. It was more complicated than it needed to be. That would be probably feedback, or this wasn't at the level of your other master series classes. I've gotten that one a couple times where it was too easy. Which I that's my hardest part as a teacher, is really judging difficulty, because everything is the same level to me, kind of thing. It's not like so understanding what people are going to perceive as hard and what they're going to perceive as not as less difficult is it's hard for me. One of my students has been on my case that I say things are hard too frequently. Like I'm constantly apologizing for the difficulty level. I don't know. That's who I am.
Well, Gavin, it's been super fun to catch up with you. Like I said earlier, your enthusiasm is really fun to be around, and I look forward to seeing you soon in Toronto.
Thank you for having me, John.